Hello, how you guys doing? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. I hope you guys have had an amazing week, an amazing month actually. It's actually the last day of July. So we're actually looking forward to August here. I hope you guys have an amazing August, but I don't have much time to captivate the viewers' attention, right? And keep the retention there. So without further ado, let me not mess around. Let me just get straight into it. Okay, we got second thought back at it again. How Finland ended homelessness. I saw this on the feed, so I was like, this interests me. I'm interested to find out, how did Finland end homelessness? And let's go. Let's find out. Let's learn.
Stream. Get free access
Let's learn
to
together,
Nebula,
right?
the
Let's
streaming
watch this
platform
together.
built by all your favorite YouTubers, when you sign up for Curiosity Stream
Let's
at the
learn
link
together.
below.
How did they do it? How did Finland do it? How did they solve it? How did they
About
solve homelessness?
600,000 people experience.
And did they do it completely? That's my question, right? Before we even start, that's my question. Did they completely end it? Like, there's zero homeless now? Like, there's no... You could walk around any busy city street, and there just won't be any, like, dude holding up a cardboard, like, sign that says, give me food for drugs or whatever. And, like, so there's no more of that? Like, there's no more, like, people just, like laying on the side of the street and shit? Because if that's the case, then that's awesome. Shouts out Finland. But I must preface, still not at 100%, still dealing from some, like, respiratory disease type shit. I don't know what was going on, but my breathing has not been at 100% for the past, like, week and a half or so, some of that week. It's a week around there.
Homelessness in the U.S. Think about your own life.
that out there.
You might not be homeless or necessarily even know.
Wait, hold on, what?
Think about your own
600,000
life.
homeless. Damn.
You might not be homeless or necessarily even know someone who is or has been.
That's a lot
But
of
you
people.
certainly know someone paying too much for rent, someone having trouble finding a place to live, someone facing eviction. In other words, someone who could become homeless without much needing to go wrong. More and more Americans are joining this category every day. The truth is that in 95% of US counties, those who work a full-time minimum wage job cannot afford even a one-bedroom apartment. Change that to a two-bedroom and the entire country becomes unaffordable. This situation is only getting worse.
So somebody who works full-time, so
country-
that means 8 hours. So if you're getting paid minimum wage, 8 hours a day, minimum wage workers cannot afford rent in any U.S. state of a two-bedroom house. Maybe they can afford one bedroom. Damn.
It becomes unaffordable. This situation is only getting worse. As a result of the pandemic, rising housing costs, wage stagnation, and the
¿Quieres una carne guisada o quieres buscar pupusas?
Pupusas. Sí, por favor.
inadequate policies of our local and federal governments, the number of people experiencing homelessness and of people on
Sorry for the interruption there. That was my dad asking me what I wanted to eat. I had to eat. I had to get the pupusas, man. That's my culture. All right, I'm Salvadorian. So we do what how we do with the pupusas, man. We love that shit. We love that.
brink has been
Yeah, look at that guy. Look at that guy going around shirtless.
steadily growing
Shout
for
out
the
to that
past
guy.
decade. That is, if you only look at the US. In this episode, we're looking at Finland's approach to homelessness, what housing first is, and what it could mean for the American economy.
Okay.
In Finland, only about 5,000 people, 0.1% of the population, are homeless. And that's even with the broadest definition of what constitutes homelessness, which includes more than who you typically think of when you hear the term. The Finnish definition of homelessness goes beyond just those who are living on the street or in emergency accommodations like shelters. In some cities, like the country's capital Helsinki, no one sleeps on the street. That type of
That's beautiful. Look at this place. This looks so wonderful. Like I really want to come here in the winter. It's too bad I can't travel, but I want to be able to travel someday. I would love to go traveling and just experience all the different cultures and stuff. I think that would be amazing. That'd be beautiful. I would love to go there. I would love to. And imagine you could strike up a conversation. Of course, there's gonna be a bit of a language barrier there, but it doesn't. What can you really do about it? I mean, that's what's good about knowing English, because English is sort of the language of business. So a lot of people manage to know English. They learn it like as a second language or something like that. So I think if you know English, you can get around pretty much anywhere. Because you're probably always gonna find somebody that speaks English. I mean, I know I go there, I'm gonna find somebody speaking English, but that must be so cool. I want to talk to somebody from Finland. I want to be right here in the city. Look at this. I even like the trolleys. Look at this little aesthetic, like the scenery we got going on back here. This is beautiful.
homelessness has been completely eliminated.
But it's not completely if it's 5,000 out here.
Compare that to the US's nearly 600.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot less, but there's also a lot less people in Finland. So, I mean, they did say 0.1%. Is this 0.1% of our population? I mean, this is not a lot of our population. This is not even... Yeah, like we have a lot more people. If you're talking about 0.1%, I don't think that's a very accurate measure because we have way more people. So they haven't completely eradicated it. It's bound that there's gonna be way less homeless because they have a lot less people. Let's look it up right now actually, just to not have any more questions. Let's not have any ambiguity there. Search up their population. Demographics 5.5. Dude, we have like, oh my god. Yeah, that's not a good they're not at zero though. Or is that before they eradicated it?
100,000 homeless people, which is almost exclusively so-called rough sleepers, those who live on the street, and the problem starts to become apparent. What's more important, though, is that homelessness isn't just low in Finland, it's actively going down. Between 2010 and 2018, Finland enjoyed a massive 40% decline in the homelessness rate. If it sounds like we're cherry-picking data, even during the pandemic, which, let me remind you, has caused a massive surge of homelessness in the US, homelessness in Finland did not increase. So what happened? How is Finland so effectively reducing homelessness? In 2007, the Finnish government started a national Housing First program. Housing First is a philosophy that argues that to make progress on homelessness, particularly chronic homelessness, you need more than temporary emergency solutions. You need permanent housing right out the gate. In other words, housing is the starting point, not the end point. The way Housing First programs work is pretty simple. People experiencing homelessness receive independent housing immediately, without having to first fulfill mental health, sobriety, income, employment, or other requirements. Once they're housed, support services are offered, not imposed, and over time, the newly housed begin to finance part of the cost of their housing to the degree that they can afford it. It sounds pretty intuitive, but this is very different from the more common continuum of care or staircase approach we're mostly using.
Getting
Here in
an
the
LLC
US?
for your business doesn't have to.
Yo,
look
fuck
like
off.
this.
I was
Just
reading.
Google
I was
LLC
getting
for
into it,
brand.
man.
It's totally
Come on.
easy. You pick.
In continuum,
I gotta keep the retention of the viewers, okay? Fuck off with the ads. That's why I gotta fuck off too. I gotta stop talking. I talk too much. I really am trying to make these shorter. I promise. You look at my videos, they're pretty long. All right. I gotta realize I gotta value people's time. People have shit to do. I don't know what the fuck I be doing talking so much. I just gotta keep it at a minimalist. Keep it at a minimums, minimums. That's what I'm gonna say. But is this continuum of care? This what we're using right here in the U.S. I fucks with that philosophy of housing first, because it makes all the sense. I mean, look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, there's certain things that need to be met before you can ever expect somebody to be like really psychologically healthy. Before you can expect somebody to have to be emotionally healthy, to be somebody that can, be in a good state of mind, to then be able to do other things, to then look into self-transcendence and then start doing other stuff and be a cooperative member of society. How the fuck are they going to do that if they don't even have a house? If they're struggling to know where the next meal is going to come from? They can't possibly focus on self-development, on helping themselves, on being healthy, on being a good person. The only thing that they can possibly care about is survival, and where they're going to get their next meal from. Well, tell me about this continuum.
that they can afford it. It sounds pretty intuitive.
This sounds like the
but
right philosophy.
This is very different from the more common.
Like anything else doesn't make sense. If you start anywhere else, like if you don't get their needs off the bat, if you can't get them water, food, and housing, if you don't start with that bottom level of the hierarchy of needs, what the fuck is the point of anything else? Nothing else is gonna work. You might as well just throw it completely out the window. It's null. It's stupid. Like, there's no point in it. Like you can't do that.
Continuum of care or staircase approach we're mostly using. In continuum of care programs, homeless people are expected to make progress on any mental health or addiction issues they may have, and to pass a certain standard before being housed. In this system, housing is at the top of the staircase. Right. These individual changes that these programs require are the sorts of things that are incredibly difficult to address when you are still contending with the anxiety of not having a home, possibly still sleeping on the street. In these continuum of care programs, only once you have demonstrated some change, which we should keep in mind is incredibly difficult to achieve without housing stability, do these programs graduate you into housing arrangements.
That's what I'm saying.
First shared housing, and slowly over time, independent housing. To some,
I'm not gonna hold you. If I had nothing, if I was homeless, if I grew up in a shitty environment, you gotta realize a lot of what we are is facticity, man. As much as I'd love to think that I'm so great and awesome, I mean, look, I am pretty unique. I'll tell you that. I can give you that. Like, no matter what my circumstances might have possibly been, if they could have been any different, I probably believe that I would have always been a very unique person. But, like, it's just like, imagine if you were just born into a family that always did drugs, or, like, how can you not do this stuff when you're homeless? I'd love to think that I wouldn't, but, like, because I've never been homeless, but, like, to think that that could happen, it's a freaky thought. Like, if you're going to be out there, you're probably going to become a drug addict. You're going to be hanging around other homeless people who all, they got to get their drugs. They got to get their shit. They got to get drunk to try to alleviate the tension and the anxiety and all of this shit that comes with being fucking homeless. Like, who designing these systems, bro? I need to have a straight talk with you, bro. I'm going to smack the shit out of you. Who's designing these systems of continuum of care and this shit to solve this shit? Are you fucking stupid? Don't answer that question. We all know the answer.
Continuum of care approaches sound great. That is, in theory. They map onto our society's values of meritocracy, of security. Only those who are deserving get access to the prize of having a home. Under this mentality, if you don't have a home, it must be because you're just not good enough yet. Come back later. It should be obvious that these programs just don't work. Not only do they strip people of their agency and come with an enormous moral burden, but recidivism is high and a huge number of people don't make it into the program in the first place because of the high barrier to entry. Compare that to Housing First. In the initial study on Housing First, back in 2003, a randomized trial of the two approaches decidedly shows the strength of the new program. Around half of the initially homeless group were accepted into permanent housing, regardless of their eligibility according to other programs, and they were then offered tailored and optional care for their individual circumstances. The other half went through conventional channels, and at the end of the trial, the results were clear. The Housing First group spent more time in stable housing, less time hospitalized, and results carried over for longer than when homeless people went through the continuum of care path. Within just 6 months, Housing First had virtually eliminated homelessness in the experimental group. It was a massive success. That first study was in New York, and inspired by its promising results, the EU ran its own pilot programs in 5 European countries with the same outcome: secure, long-term housing stability. And now that it's become the official national policy of the Finnish government, we've seen just how much good this can achieve. It is abundantly clear that this approach works. Despite all of this, some of you
It makes fucking sense. It's obvious. Of course it's gonna work, man.
might still
What else is gonna work? I mean, sure, there's other philosophies. There's maybe other ways to go about it. But if you're not starting with the basic needs, I think that should be like the thing, right? That should be the thing that we get out the gate. That should be the thing that you should always start with. That's the essence of the whole thing. That should be its essence. It's most primal, at its most primal core. It's what you're trying to fix, right? Getting people into homes, fixing homelessness. Well, you're looking at the problem upside fucking down, in my opinion, with the whole continuum of care shit. Like, you're just expecting them to do this shit. I mean, of course, it's what everybody else is doing. It makes, within the context of what the U.S. is, it kind of makes sense. Everybody has to work for their shit. Everybody has to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But the funny thing is, these motherfuckers don't have boots. That's what's so funny about it. And yet you're still giving them the same system. You're still wanting them to work with the same shit. You're still getting them into the same process. And yet they don't have boots to pull themselves up from. Like, they don't have they can't afford the boots. That's the funny thing about it. You fucking stupid? Are you fucking stupid? Who's designing this? I'm gonna smack the shit out of you. Like, I swear to God, I will.
be skeptical. Forget for a second that housing is a universal right we are all entitled to. That it is baked into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the US has signed onto and agreed to provide in front of the entire international community.
They don't believe that around here. They think everything a privilege. That's how it goes. That's the whole mindset. That's the philosophy, everybody. All of this shit is a privilege. It's like, we're at a point where it really doesn't need to be a privilege. It really doesn't need to be. You seeing these motherfuckers out here with their mansions? And 137 rooms in them when there's people with no rooms. Ain't that funny?
Forget that this right doesn't include temporary shelters, but only real, stable housing, and that there are metrics around accessibility, affordability, discrimination, and protection from eviction which good Housing First programs conform to perfectly, in addition to affirming the basic idea of being decent to real human people. You might still wonder about costs in the wealthiest country in the world that regularly provides housing subsidies mostly to the wealthiest people in the country through mortgage interest tax deductions costing the American people, I don't know, $70 billion a year, or close to 25 times what is set aside for homelessness programs at the federal level. Imagine all that incredibly important stuff doesn't matter. It's gone. Forget about it. Housing First is still cheaper than not housing people or walking them through an ineffective continuum of care program. Not only are people housed through Housing First
So
covering—
it's cheaper because you're giving these motherfuckers tax deductions or mortgage deductions? The motherfuckers that have mansions? See, this is why people get angry. Because we know about this. Everybody talks about it. You ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Motherfuckers, nobody pays taxes when you're at the top, bro. You don't. Of course, it's about knowing a system, of course. It's like, knowledge is going to help you there. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be filthy rich to maybe, find a work around the system. Because there are things you can do, start an LLC, do these stuff. Anything you purchase, say that you're buying it as a, for your business. And then you can get a tax deduction on it. Like, there's a bunch of shit you can do. But it's like, how are you expecting these motherfuckers to do that, bro? How are you expecting them to know this knowledge when they can't be educated on it? They don't even do they even have a phone? Do they even have a phone? Like, what do these motherfuckers have? I know some of them have phones. A lot of them actually do have phones. I've been to a place when my phone got stolen. It was stolen by a homeless man, and I went looking for it. I saw hella motherfuckers that they got phones, but you can't really expect much. Like, I'm not gonna expect them to pull. I'm not the guy that I can see that stuff, right? I can see, okay, they have phone. They have this, some of them have this, some of them have that. But I'm still not gonna really expect them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I'm not gonna hold you. It just seems kind of ignorant if I were to do that. Of course, it makes sense with the whole landscape of the U.S. Everything works like this. Work your ass off, earn it. Do something. But it's like, I just feel there's a better system, I feel it right here. There's a better system. There's just something that should be way better, way more, caring, way more, paying attention to the actual human being in the person. These are conscious, sentient, these are conscious agents navigating the universe. Like, you look into their eyes, you're looking into the soul of the universe coming to life. You're looking at a conscious human being. You can go look at a fucking homeless man in the eyes. It's a human being. A lot of times, and what bad about it is their circumstances can make them sort of shitty a lot of the times. Some of them are very grumpy. You go to a homeless man, how can you expect them to be that happy, bro? How can you expect them to just be nice and kind to everybody? Look at how the system's been fucking them over. How can you expect kindness? And that's a bad thing, It's like, you go up to them, they're all grumpy. And they're all, kind of, really shitty. And that's what you hate. You don't want that to happen. I want to see the human in you. I don't want to, get angry at you. I don't want to be like, oh, look at you over there smoking. You deserve to be in this position. How could you have possibly fucked up that bad to end up in this position? Yeah, that's easy. Your brain wants to do that. Your brain wants to go there, to think that they deserved it, that they did something so horrible, so that then you don't have to carry the burden of then realizing that there's a problem that needs to be fixed. Your brain likes to go with what's easy, so it's just going to say, well, they fucked up. It's on them. The system didn't screw them over. They fucked themselves over. That's the easier thing to think. That's the easier thing to believe, because then you don't have to go and then think about, you don't have to let your moral compass take over, and then you're going to be like, shit, I realized this fact. I don't like the fact that that's a fact. I want to do something about it, And it's like, well, when you just think that they deserve it, then you don't have to act on it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to advocate for anything. You don't have to donate to anything. You don't have to think about how the fuck you're going to maybe try to change the system. You don't have to do anything. You can just sit back and be like, well, it's on them. It's on them. They got to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's on them. That's not how it works.
Cost and are more easily employed, but housing people saves money in the long term on comparatively costly emergency hospitalization bills and absurdly expensive policing, which both go down when 1. People's needs are taken care of preventatively, and 2. They aren't exposed to an expensive state apparatus that has criminalized existing without a house.
criminalize existing without a house. That's good.
There are two types of lizard or reptilian kind.
Oh, please.
Given all this evidence, you're probably wondering, why aren't we doing this? To be fair, there are some small-scale examples of this in the US. The US Department of Housing and Urban Development does fund certain homelessness programs, some of them with the Housing First methods. However, these programs are only robust in a few cities and states. But no matter the nature of the program, whether it's Housing First, Continuum of Care, or something else, funding is far too low. The HUD's budget and municipal aid funds have steadily declined over time, and as a result, programs scrape together a budget from the general public and several different local and federal funds, rarely ever amounting to what they actually need to provide effective services. But the main problem behind all of this isn't that homelessness programs aren't getting enough funding. That is an issue just a little further down the line. The underlying problem is affordable housing. And at the core of that problem is our capitalist organization of the economy. Under a capitalist economy, housing isn't treated like the right it's considered to be by most nations, including, on paper, the United States. Instead, it's a commodity, something to be traded, speculated on, turned for a profit. That is the main goal of housing in a commodity market. Not putting people in homes, making money. As a result, developers, investors, and the like don't focus their energy on housing the poor, from whom they can only extract so much, but rather on building luxury accommodations for the wealthy, leaving largely empty units across the country only rarely occupied, if at all, while people in desperate need of housing are refused access and subjected to a manufactured housing scarcity. On top of that, there is a very real incentive for capitalists to only partially resolve homelessness. The threat of losing the roof over your head keeps even the most exploited worker in a job they hate. Increasingly, that threat forces people into even more dire conditions as wages become less and less sufficient to cover housing costs, forcing people to take on several jobs and work untenable hours to avoid the possibility of eviction. It is not in the capitalist interest to remove that powerful, terrifying incentive. And here is where the Finnish success story may go beyond Housing First.
I just want to smack the fuck out of the world sometimes, you know? I just want to smack them all. Like that one guy in that one video when he kept like bitch slapping everybody. I just want to do them all like that, man. I have no higher wish, you know? I have no more ultimate desire. That is my ultimate desire. Is to beat the fuck out of whoever it's like there's no single person. There's no unseen hand, man. It's like it's so much. It's so embedded in the reality and the foundation of this system, man. I just want to smack all of you, man. I want to give you all the finger, and I want you to sit on it. Whoever decided to, it gets you angry. You know, it gets angry. But you got to realize some things are just out of your control, man. But I can't. I'm not worried about being happy right now. I'm not worried about my own, my own comfortability, my own state of being right now. I want to figure out how can we change this. That's the important thing. Sometimes you have to put aside your stoic roots and be like, nah, fuck that. I get it's out of my control, sure. But it's like, does it always have to be that way? Does it have to necessarily be out of our control? Can we change this fucking system somehow? What can we do? Let's do something, man. Let's just sit on our ass all day. Let's do something. Please, where's the think tanks? Can we set up a think tank somewhere? Like where are the good motherfuckers, bro? Can this generation save us? Everybody on the top is always so fucking old, man. They're always so stupid. So full of themselves, man. God, can't AI take over? I think AI would just be better. Like, they're not going to be thinking about making money, unless if you program them like that, but, like, they're not going to be selfish. Everybody's selfish. You put me there, I'm selfish. I have to say that I'm not unselfish, but I'm going to be selfish in a different way. Wherein, like, it's not going to be about fucking money. I want to be selfish in a way where I want people to love me. I want people to see the great change that I'm making. I get something from that. I get something from making people's lives better. I get something from seeing people's smiles on their faces. I get something from that. That's my selfishness, you know? I get something from people being able to live and to be able to then go up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're going to have more people, more educated people, man. Like, you're going to have more people that can be educated. You have more people that are then going to go on to become scientists, that are going to solve world hunger. They're going to solve issues. Somebody that's homeless right now, if they would have been in a different system, if they would have been educated, if they would have had a house, if they would have had everything that we have had, how many of those motherfuckers do you think would have probably gone on to become something special? To change the course of human history as we know it, probably. They would have maybe found the cure for cancer. Maybe done some fucking amazing shit. Who knows? Created something beautiful. If only they would have just had the fucking chance. But not this fucking system. But the motherfuckers at the top that are only worried about their money. It stops them. They don't care about the goodness of people. They only care about themselves. And it's like, well, let's choose the right type of selfish people. Because you're not going to find unselfish people. But let's choose the right people. Right? And yes, that would be me insinuating that I would be the right type of person. You know? Because like I said, that's my selfishness. That's what I get from it, right? Is the praise, people loving me, is people realizing that, you know, like saying like, oh, that's such a great man, that's such a great leader, that's the philosopher king right there, that's that guy, that I want to lead us. That's the guy. But of course, like you get you know I get my shit from that. That's better to me than any money, right? I mean, whatever you have here, you can't take it with you. The only thing that remains, anything that is just about you, anything that you concern yourself with that is just about yourself, it's going to die with you. I'm not going to take it with you. But what is going to live on is the impact that you have on others. It's the only thing that I like. And if you're looking at it in the right way, that's more of an impact, right? That's a greater impact. And who's going to argue against that? Who's going to argue against that fact that it's just a better impact? To influence others, to have a positive impact on other people's lives, to just make them better. That's a better impact. That's way better than any money that I might be able to have here, than any commodity, than any mansion with 37 rooms, than any 3 shorties twerking on me. Like, we're mortal, man. Let's all try to make the best entropy. Let's try to leave the best entropy here. Let's try to do things that are going to make the world a better place. Let's leave it better than we found it. But people don't think like that, man. No. Like, you don't have to give up selfishness. You don't have to give up anything. Just simply reframe it. Reframe your selfishness. I will tell you, I'm selfish as fuck. I don't care. And it's not that I'm selfish as fuck, but I would be willing to admit that if I was. If I am, I don't know. A lot of that shit is subconscious and unconscious. But my selfishness does not involve around me just simply having money. Like, it would be with making people's lives better, because that would make me feel so amazing about myself. I would feel like a literal god on earth if I could just see and look down from some high place and look at the people just, you know, joyfully cheering. Not necessarily at me and like calling my name, and not like I'm a dictator, but like seeing them cheering and happy and hugging each other, embracing and just full of love and happiness and prosperity, you know? And people just being like glad to be alive and glad to be in their country. Seeing less people homeless, seeing less people without jobs, seeing less people with depression killing themselves. You know, all of that shit, it would do me so many wonders. Something that money never could. And that's where that selfishness comes in. And that's why you need people that think like me. That know that that's selfish. That that's me to gain. You know? But if you put those people out there, you put people like me at the top, you're going to have a better world. It's that simple. You know, you could try AIs too. They're probably going to get involved, and they're going to be, unless, like I said, unless if they're programmed to have an agenda, to work towards something that's not, you know, ethical or the right thing that we really want to worry about, then AI would just simply be way better to lead. Like, it literally just would.
Alone. Not only is Housing First doing a good job of taking people out of homelessness in a reliable way, but a social democratic organizing of the economy is limiting the extent to which people are likely to fall into it in the first place. It's still capitalism, so it still relies on somebody being exploited, in this case people in the global south, but at the very least, social democracy goes part of the way on neutering perverse capitalist incentives on continuing homelessness domestically. One key element of this is unionization. High unionization at 75% of the Finnish workforce, and therefore higher wages and higher job security than in freer markets, mean that as people exit homelessness, they are unlikely to be replaced or fall back into it themselves. American conservatives love to rail against Housing First, touting its failures to make significant changes in cities like Los Angeles, where homelessness has continued to rise despite Housing First programs taking root. What they conveniently forget to mention is that the continuum of care programs they prefer still deliver worse results. And the core issue of the skyrocketing housing prices in the free market is why people are even pushed out into homelessness in the first place. The thing is, it doesn't have to be this way. There are solutions to reduce the scale of this issue. Earlier this year, the Gravel Institute released a great video on one of these solutions, the decommodification of housing. I'll put a link to that video and all of the sources for this one in the description. At the end of the day, the conclusion that you should take away from the Finnish case isn't just that this one type of program works really well at taking people out of an incredibly difficult situation for the benefit of everyone. It does do that, but that's not the point. The Finnish example gives us a glimpse of how we can treat housing differently. Instead of being a game for the wealthy to gamble their own fortunes and the livelihoods of millions of Americans, Housing First shows us what housing really is: a necessity, a right. It's something that must come before almost everything else, something which we must guarantee, or fail to recognize the humanity of millions of people. If you're interested in what the future of housing might look like, I highly recommend you check out Home of the Future on CuriosityStream. It's a fascinating look at cutting-edge production methods and radically different approaches to housing than those we see today. CuriosityStream is an established streaming platform with a solid track record of caring about great education.
Oh man, but no system's perfect, man. Everything has its drawbacks. People, of course, when you're making an argument, there's always going to be an opposing side. That's what's horrible about it. There's no perfect system ever. But it's like, can we come to a consensus about what it has the most pros, what has the least cons, and what is the system by which you are, going to come about deciding on what is a pro and a con? It all starts with thoughts. It all starts with your worldview. It all starts with your philosophy, man. Because it just depends on what the fuck you've been, indoctrinated into caring about, into believing is the best thing for everybody. If you think the best thing for everybody is just the economy, well, sure. Everybody's always going to have a argument against something that's better for humans. There's always going to be an argument against housing first. It's going to be like, oh, well, look here. Here's an exception. Didn't work here. No, we can't do that. The economy would lower. No, we'd have less money going around. We'd have less productivity. We'd have less people working 13 hours a day to make ends meet. And you know what that means? That means less productivity. That means less technological innovation. It just depends on what the fuck you care about. I care about something. I have a philosophy. I don't know where the fuck it came from. It came from somewhere, right? It isn't necessarily all just me. I mean, I'm an information processing system. Whatever experiences I may have had have caused me to care more. Also just my heart, I feel. Also like a moral compass. It's like, I feel like that's the definition of that, right? To care for people, to have empathy. Shouldn't you put empathy first? Shouldn't you always care about the people first before you start caring about some, economy, before you start caring about money, before you start caring about this, and that? It's like there's never a perfect system. Stop, you could only ever get somebody on the opposing side to agree with you if it was a perfect system. But they don't realize there's no perfect system. You can always find a drawback, especially when you're looking for it. They're going to be like, oh, this profit first thing? Well, see, then the homeless people don't have incentives to get out of there. They don't have enough motivation. Because, yes, that's true. A lot of the best boxers ever, they come from poverty. They come from really shitty positions. And that drive, that hunger to get the fuck out of there, that's what makes them world champions. There is a driving force in that struggle. It's a great driving force. A lot of great stuff do come from it. But it's like, if we could just... Yeah, sure. You do love to see it. You love an underdog story. Yes, we love... Who doesn't love an underdog story? Who doesn't? Of course we need people, who are hungry and driven. And sure, maybe it would go down if you had a universal basic income. If you had a nobody homeless, nobody hungry. But it's like... I can't care enough about the fact that maybe less people are going to be hungry. Less people are going to want to innovate. Right now, I don't see the immediate fuck up of that. I don't see how, there's more pros in that point of view than pros in my point of view. I'm not gonna hold you because I have empathy first. That's the thing. It's like we're working with a driving force and have our like the first foot that we use to even jump off. It's a different foot. We're using different foot. That's the thing. My foot is empathy and caring about people. And of course, the way that I see it, I think everybody should see it that way. But of course, they fucking don't. They care about their money. They're worried about economy. They're worried about the industrialism. They're worried about getting their new phone every year. I need them fucking Chinese working in them sweatshops. I need them motherfuckers down there. I need my new iPhone 14 next year. Okay? You're not gonna stop me from getting my iPhone 14. I need it. I worked so hard to get where I am. Don't give them motherfuckers free money, free housing. They don't deserve it. Look at the system. This is not how the system works. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Why can't they? They don't have boots. Oh well. I'm just gonna ignore that fact. Because if I didn't ignore it, I'd have cognitive dissonance. And I'd have to actually, maybe change my opinion and maybe admit that I'm wrong. And that's going to take up a lot of cognitive resources. And I don't want to do that. I have an ego. I have pride. I watch Fox News after coming home, working 13 hours a day every day. And they just reinforce. Or CNN, doesn't matter. I'm not necessarily just mad at one side. It's everybody. I come home every night and I watch the news and they see that's my mythology. That's like the Bible to me. That's where I get my truth from. That's the truest truth out there. They give me the right stuff. They give me the facts. They tell the real news, unlike CNN. Right? And from them, that's where I derive my worldview. That's where, from all the stuff. From my daddy, too. He always told me business comes first. He always told me blah, blah, blah. I come home and they feed me mythology. They feed me what I'm going to believe. They tell me everything I believe is the truth. And that it's the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I don't need to look any further. I know the truth. I know the right thing to do. The right thing. The truth. The facts. Fucking just completely get those words out of your vocabulary, bro. Like, linguistics is where we fuck up. That's the main driving for linguistics, mythology, philosophy. That's the root. You gotta get to the root. If you can't get to the root, nothing's changing. The way that they word it, they think that they know what's right. They think that they know what facts is, as if there's any way to know facts. As if there's any way to know what the truth is, if truth is always subjective. Like, God, people are fucking stupid, because they don't think about the fact, they don't think about the roots. They just don't. Yeah, they reinforce my world. They tell me everything I believe is right, and I believe them. So everything I believe is right, and I'm on the right team, and I'm fighting for the right thing. Yeah, and I know the facts. I am a well-educated human being. I am so up to date on all the facts because I watch the news. Man, there's just so many problems. There's so many problems. I'm done. The fuck did I click?